So at the very outset, I'll ask the audience a simple question. Who here agrees that AI is one of the most transformational forces today? Very cool. In show of hands, who has a great idea of where AI is headed and how you can evaluate AI companies? Some of you are faking it, but the rest of you are honest. Thankfully, we have a panel that will share their thoughts about how do you evaluate an AI company, what are the AI trends you should look for, and enlighten all of us. I'm also curious to hear what the different opinions are on this panel. So let's introduce the panelists. Pradnya, do you want to talk about yourself?
It creates contracts, negotiates on platform, has e-signature, keeps track of obligations. It functions as an in-house legal team. And I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for almost 20 years. Ran a law firm before, and before that, I was a U.S. diplomat representing the United States at embassies around the world, and represented the U.S. at the World Trade Organization in the negotiations on the Doha round.
Hello. My name is Magnus. I'm a software engineer by training, but I have, in the last 10 years or so, worked on angel investments. I'm a member of Alliance of Angels, which is the local angel investment organization here. We're about 200 angel investors in the Pacific Northwest. About 2 years ago, my co-investor, Mark Taylor here, and I was chatting at one of our events and said, this ChatGPT and this Gen AI, that's incredible. Let's just start an AI committee and focus on those companies now, because that's going to be, when Netscape came out, I worked in Silicon Valley, 94, right? Netscape, IPO, and then you have eBay, you have Yahoo, you have Netflix, you have Google come out. So that's going to be a lot of billion-dollar companies starting what ChatGPT launched. So we thought, well, let's just start investing in AI companies. So Mark and I worked on that for the last couple of years here. Actually, both Mark and I, we did our graduate studies in AI in a long time when Mammoth Wolf ruled the earth here. So we've seen a lot, and we're super excited now that actually suddenly, after 70 years of research, suddenly it happens. So I thought it would never happen in my lifetime, but here we are. I'm super excited about it.
Hey y'all, I'm Ken Horenstein. I'm the founder and general partner of PAC Ventures. We're a preferred venture fund for the University of Washington, and everything we invest in has some connection to UW. Our fund is mostly pre-seed and seed, and predominantly focused on artificial intelligence. But unlike a lot of the funds in the region, we're a true generalist fund. So about 40% of our fund goes into software, 40% goes into life sciences, and the last 20% is what we just broadly call deep tech, but this will be autonomous systems, robotics, and also what we think is kind of the evolving compute infrastructure layer. And so we don't shy away from the foundational part of AI, which is atoms in the real world actually processing energy and trying to do something on behalf of all of us, right? Before this, I was part of Microsoft's venture fund. It's called M12. And so there we were investing in typically 20 plus companies a year on behalf of Microsoft. I was actually there at the time that the very first OpenAI investment was made. And so my background is mostly coming from software, but maybe what I'll talk a little bit about today is this convergence of AI and biotechnology as we talk through what the future looks like, because I personally think this is the #1 place in the entire world for AI bio, and we can talk through why that is.
Thank you. I have my own hot mic, so thank you for the offer. So to warm up the discussion, I'd be curious, panelists, can you share what the heck is this AI? What does it mean to you?
All right, I'll give 3 answers. The academic answer, the pragmatic answer, and my subjective answer. So the academic answer is, if you pass the Turing test, you're an AI. And a Turing test was this invention about 100 years ago that said if you have a computer behind a screen and you talk to it for 30 minutes, do you know if you're talking to a computer or a human? That is the Turing test, essentially, 30 minutes. And I think ChatGPT just blew through that test. So, yep, here we are, passed Turing test. That's the academic answer. The pragmatic answer is AI is any problem we haven't solved yet. So when I was working on AI, we were working on planning and route planning. So if you do Google directions today, that was AI in the 80s and 90s, and no one would call that AI today. Chess playing software, that was AI. Today we call it chess software. It's not AI. Search used to be AI. It's not natural language processing used to be AI. So pragmatically, it's any AI is anything just beyond the horizon that we're working on. And once we solve it, we're going to call it what it is and not AI. The third answer is my subjective answer, is that wherever there is some activity that requires some kind of human intervention, we say humans are intelligent, but not other mammals, we think, right? So anything that requires some kind of, either it's rote or it's some kind of adaptability, I think that's where we're going to see a lot of those tasks being addressed by AI, including scientific discovery, including in dangerous environments, etc., etc.
Excellent answer. At one point you pointed to me and I said, maybe he's saying that the job of the chair will also go away. But thanks for not highlighting it very strongly.
I wonder if anyone's working on that. I really liked that answer, especially starting with the academic answer. I'm a practitioner and a non-technical founder. And so, yes, AI are systems and processes that can learn and can correct themselves, but that's not really what's all that interesting about AI. I liked your second answer a lot, that it can really be any problem that needs to be solved. I would specifically really point to the use cases, because there are so many use cases that we haven't even begun to solve with AI, because we really started with the top line use cases. So I absolutely look at the practical application and then add to what you said.
Yeah, I think both of these answers are really good. It's hard for me to say here is exactly what AI is, because it breaks down into so many different technology types at this point, in addition to application, right? So are we talking about natural language processing, signal processing? Where does you draw the line with machine learning? Where do you think about this idea of generative AI or self-correcting AI? Like, each of these, I think, are core components of what we now experience as AI. The interesting thing for me, and maybe building on a little bit of what Magnus said here, back in 1995 till roughly about 2010, there was a lot that you could do with machine learning to aggregate information, and that actually created the best business ever created on the planet until recently in Google. If you could use code to go out and just grab information and organize it, we thought that was magical, right? That to us was, whoa, this is really cool AI. Then from the 2010s until November 2023, it was about analytics. And you had Salesforce built, you had all the cloud providers built, and everyone preached, we're going to give you analytics and insights on all of that aggregated data that you're bringing together. Now it's about action. So whether we call these agents or companions or co-pilots, it is how do lines of code take away physical human labor hours. That is what all of the next decade of AI will be about, in my opinion.
Excellent. Thank you for your perspectives. I loved hearing the three perspectives here. My own opinion of AI, I really like what Magnus has to say. It's the next thing that has not been solved yet, which is outside the realm of current software. As soon as it becomes part of what we do, like Google is a great example. I don't think people think these days of Google as AI. But when the PageRank was first invented, it was considered revolutionary in terms of revolutionizing how knowledge search is done. If one thing I have seen in 30 years in the field, I could not have predicted what came next. But I remember the sheer excitement when Jeff Hinton first proposed deep learning and he was able to blow image search benchmarks out of the water. It was revolutionary. And then came transformers and the field that I work in, natural language processing. got completely revolutionized with new ways of doing things that we couldn't even imagine. The recent models, the foundation models, are just incredible. Having the power of something that's running on a terabyte of memory, vast numbers of GPUs, available to all of us, the democratization is amazing. And as a lead into what you will see today, we have got 10 amazing companies that are taking all of this foundational work and using it for verticals, as you guys said, to solve very specific problems. I can't wait to see what comes next. And I know the people in this room and the presenters will be helping us get there. But if we get down to the nuts and bolts, what are some good evaluation frameworks for AI-based companies?
I'll start with don't be just a rapper. That's something maybe we all know. But not only that, is that at least in my company, I look to see where the foundation models are going to go next and make sure that's not where I'm building as a founder. Because that at least, and then the way to evaluate that, I think, is at least the in verticals that are not very general, like coding, that it's much more likely that the foundational models don't go. But I think that in a lot of ways, application companies are very closely watching what we think the foundation models are going to do and base what we are going to do next on that. So build where they're not going to go.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about this at the Alliance of Angels. And as investor, we love when companies have a moat. So we said, oh, let's look for AI companies with a moat. And we've been looking, and we're still looking. And there's, we haven't found any really AI company that has a moat, right? So, and I'm pretty plugged into Silicon Valley, and this is exactly the same discussion that happens there. What is the moat? No one has a moat. But what makes OpenAI, like, they seem to execute better than anyone else. So the thinking now is essentially, maybe execution is a moat. If you execute better than anyone else, maybe that is your moat. If you can deliver better, faster, more accurate, more users pleased product, maybe that's a moat. And I think that's a fantastic opportunity for startups, because it means that no one is safe. No big companies, no small companies are safe. If you just execute, if you execute better than anyone else, that might become a sustainable moat.
Yeah, I think both those answers are good. A couple things I would extend on, and the way we think about it. There's a class of companies we see that are building too close to the AI black hole. So, you know, the way Pradnya had said this was, hey, is this where one of the foundation models is going to go? If it's somewhere they have to go, not something they could go do, that's usually a reason for us to say, we're not going to do this, right? If this is something that is existential to ChatGPT, Llama, Mistral, any of them figuring out how to be more sustainable than they are today, because they aren't sustainable at the cost and the energy it requires to do this, that's probably not a good place to go build a startup unless you can get there so fast that they would rather buy you, and that's pretty tough to do. For a long time, we were also in agreement on this idea of there's no moat. So the phrase used to be, you know, data is the new oil. And if you have unique data, then you can go build a company off of that unique data set. The number of synthetic data companies I see now and models that are leveraging synthetic data to still be more accurate is just going through the roof. So data is now a commodity. However, I would like differentiate the types of data. So part of how we think about this is there is one type of data so far that we've seen that's really hard to recreate, and it can only happen through great execution. And this is the RHLF, or any type of interaction data between the human using your system and your product, and then it providing feedback to the product, so this product, through some type of chain of thought, can actually improve itself. That data, you can't brute force recreate, and you only get that when people use your product enough. And that makes the product sticky, and it makes people saying, okay, if I've been using, actually this is a great example. I'm a ChatGPT like power user, but I do not use many of the others. Part of the reason is when I started to try the others, I hadn't been using them for a couple months, and they feel totally different than ChatGPT feels to me. I'm stuck on ChatGPT. We run our fund on Notion. Notion knows my voice because I've written so many things in Notion that it writes better than any other foundation model can in my voice, requires me less time to go edit it. And so 9 months ago, I would say 0 out of 10 founders who are pitching us were talking about this last piece, which is how do I understand what's happening in my product to build a data set that trained my product that no one else can go get. I think now maybe 2 out of 10 are talking about that. And I think that is where you end up building a data moat that actually sustains and keeps your product out and ahead of all these fast-moving competitors.
Thank you. A long time ago, maybe 18 months ago, word on the street was that the real advantage in AI companies was rolling your own models using your own proprietary data sets. And then came these foundation models that seem to do everything. So I'd be curious to hear about perspectives. Is there an advantage to having a data moat at all? I know you covered on it a little bit, but I'd be curious to hear from the other participants here.
Well, one thing, you talked about models though, and so I think it's important to understand in any product that you're building, there's a value chain of inputs. And there's certain areas where you can uniquely add value to that product because it's your unique genius, your unique insight, right? And there's areas where you should use open source or you should use other code bases or things that are just readily available for you. Originally, we heard all of these founders saying, like for the first 2 months is, oh, we're going to build a competitor. And then they all kept using the foundation models and said, the next 6 months was, we're never going to build a competitor. We're only going to use the foundation models. We're actually back to a more nuanced answer, in my opinion, which is, here is where we use one of the foundation models. Here's the 17 other things that need to happen. And here's where some things we are using open source or we're using some other provider or startup. But then usually it has to do with RAG. Here is where we are now making unique alterations or weights or whatever it is that you think will change that foundation model to be its own. But again, this goes back to what systems have you set up to gather data to feed back into your particular curation so that your curation continually gets better with every single product usage. I rarely hear people talk about that.
I'd love to add to that because that is exactly what Advocat does, and so it's the place we've lived for a few years before the foundation models became as good as they were. Is that so? In answer to your question, it can't be either or, which is exactly what you are saying. Is that yes, it's important to use the foundation models because they are updating much faster than any single company can possibly do so with the data that goes in with the compute. There's no way that we can or should be trying to keep up by building our own. That doesn't make sense to do. But at the same time, if we only have access to what everybody else has access to, we're not doing anything. And so that's why it's important to combine what we do is through is a knowledge graph, and that injects through RAG to prompt foundation models, which is building data, or rather building data through reinforcement of our users. And I think that's what you have to do, is you have to have the part that's your own and the part that keeps up with the foundation model. That means, my CTO likes to say, it means that we're building on a very shaky foundation, and that you're standing on a sand dune that's constantly moving because as you are interacting with your data is interacting with the foundation model, that the results every week, every day change. And so constantly we have to adapt to that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the way to think about it is the foundation models. If you look at the LLMs, they've essentially crawled the entire internet, including transcribed all YouTube videos. So there is no more data. They have all the data in the foundation models. Now so to go to the next level, where do you get the next level of data? It's also interesting if you look at how much data is actually on the internet. And it's about as much data as a 4-year-old person have observed. So if you compare that to like how much a human takes in, we're at least 2 magnitudes away from like what a human grown-up have in terms of our learning. And where does that data come from? For humans, it's massively through our eyes. Vision is like the big one. And we are not even close to that level of data in the foundation models. I think where things need to go next, I mean, since there's no more data on the internet, where do you get the next level of data? And I think that's around the domain-specific aspects. Like Pradnya was saying, like if you have some unique aspect on the domain, you can actually do a lot of automation around that. And that's where I think a lot of the innovation will happen. Essentially, if you think about the vertical SaaS, all of that's going to change in the next 10 years here. What we do today in vertical SaaS, forget that. Call centers, medical coding, factory automation, defense, whatever you're working on, right? All those vertical SaaS companies is going to be replaced by some AI. Either they do it or someone else will do it. And I think to be able to get that level of domain-specific information, you cannot just say, oh, we're going to use like the law text that we found on the internet. You have to have some unique aspect of how do you actually interpret the law. Case text got acquired here, right? And they were trying to get lawyers to annotate, well, this ruling means this. No lawyer want to do that. And but they were still bought for what, $600 million or something like that. So this is just an example where you see this vertical SaaS. There is so much information around domain-specific applications that I think is where, at least from Alliance of Angels, we are starting to look at. It's essentially only vertical AI companies we're starting to look at now. And traditionally, the big vendors like Microsoft, Google, they have never been good at vertical applications. So I think that door is wide open for AI startups.
I want to add a little bit on verticals. Is that by trolling or rather by ingesting the entire internet for something as specific as, well, really any professional services, but take law in particular, is that things that come out of Westlaw and things that come out of Quora are all in there when you ask it to write your contract. And that is what's dangerous, and that in any vertical is an advantage that application companies have over foundation models by not using them directly. You can still give it an index, and you can give it weights that aren't available yet in the foundation models.
Is anyone here working in healthcare or life sciences, or is everyone here just enterprise or B2B SaaS? Okay, so to like further put onto Magnus's point here, in healthcare and life sciences, the amount of data that's available that has been structured and interpreted the way that we have on the internet is like a fraction of a percent. I normally wear a Apple Watch. We are doing nothing with that data like we have done with the internet on every other type of data. And so that is still, for me, a domain where there is so much opportunity, right? The same is true with life sciences. So the interesting thing, and one reason why we do a lot of this convergence between AI and biotech, is there is a part of this that happens in silico, but then most of it has to happen and be reinforced and confirmed in vitro or in vivo. That data of that, okay, we designed an experiment, we designed a protein, we designed a drug, and then we did something outside of the system and collected the data, no matter what tooling is in place, creates such valuable long-term differentiated data that's another area we see where you can still have a data moat.
Thank you. We have talked at length about technology aspects, data aspects, foundation models, but I'm curious how you would assess a team that is coming in for any company that's pitching. How do you assess the strengths of the team?
Okay, I'll give you a hack if any of you pitch us. Our one question that's a very quick tell is what is and what was hard about building what you've built. If you say anything other than deeply understanding and spending hundreds of hours with a customer to know exactly how their workflows and their day works, then you're not a fit for us. If you say anything about leveraging a model, getting data, any of that, that has all been commoditized. And that just means it's hard for you. It's not hard for 5 or 10 other founders. it's hard for everyone to understand a customer so deeply that they build an excellent product. That is literally hard for everybody. The rest of it, in our opinion, has been completely commoditized.
Great reminder. Customer obsession. I think a bookstore in town has built a very large company based on that.
Yeah, team remains a very important aspect, but what I would say is that domain, if you're going to go after a domain-specific application, obviously your domain knowledge, and not only your individual, but the environment's domain knowledge is very important. However, I've seen a lot of domain experts that will say, "Oh, we tried that, that's never going to work. Oh, we did that. I did that when in my thesis. We tried that, never worked." So sometimes you have too much domain knowledge, and then you realize it's impossible what you're trying to do. So I'm very excited to see all these young founders that, in a way, they're a little naive, but it's that naive is also a force that, oh, of course we can solve it. And I'm super excited about like the new wave of founders for these AI companies. If you look at OpenAI, right? Sam Altman, he's not even 40, and he is the adult in the room there. The others are like kids. I mean, yeah, they might have PhD from Stanford and MIT, but they are still kids, right? And they have no respect for what didn't work, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I think that's fantastic. Like Mark Chen, who worked on the DALL-E, and it's a the OpenAI, he's one that stayed after the reorganization. He's coaching the math Olympiad team, right, on his spare time, and he's driving a lot of this ChatGPT 4.0, the Omni, if you've seen that, right? And I hope we come back to that, because I think that is kind of next level of AI companies going to be built around that.
Well, Magnus, I believe that when we pitched Advocat a few years ago, you said that Advocat could never be built. I had to bring that up.
I think we are all learning.
Well, to be fair, it was before LLMs were any good. Way exactly, they were no good then. So I am not an investor, so won't directly answer that question, except to build on what you just said. Is that one thing that we founders have to do that hasn't changed at all in the age of AI is that we have to understand our customer at a deep level and be built for that and be laser focused on the problem. And in some ways, I worry that we get really excited about what AI can do and focus on the technology, not the problem. And we have to be focused on the problem and the customer.
Thank you again for your perspectives. Yeah, the team is what actually builds the company. And I'm heartened to see that all of you agree that focusing on the team, having them have a certain sense of naive optimism and customer focus are both needed. Let's talk about some of the risks and red flags. It's an open-ended question. What are some of the red flags you would see in a company that's pitching to you?
When they come to us and they think they have the answer, that is good. But then when you start poking at them, you see how they react to like new data. What I love to do is when I see a startup is to follow them for a few months. And you can see that when you meet them, they are very confident that we're going to do this. And then you follow them a few months and there's some new data, you maybe they have some new customers. And the way they learn, will they change, will they pivot, will they adapt? And I love to see that growth. If you have a growth mindset as a founder, that is very, very powerful. So I love to follow a company for a few months, and that's not always possible, but if I can, that's what we like to do.
Yeah, I think the first one is that technical question that I ask, and just trying to understand how deeply does this person really understand the core components of where the industry is today. I really like what Magnus said. This is an important one with me. Sometimes we don't have months to follow, so I have to force it in a meeting. I love debating, no matter what side I need to take. And so I'll intentionally take the other side of their opinion, mainly just to see the reaction. If the reaction is, you're wrong, that's stupid, or something of that realm, that's a big red flag for me. If it's, we tried that, here's what we learned, here's how we tried it, That's super positive flag for me. Or, haven't thought of that. Here's how I would go test that. That's also a positive for me, right? And so just taking the other side in the moment, and even if I know they're right, and just trying to push them is something that can usually bring out that growth mindset or not. I think there's some basic things around, can this person recruit the resources that they need, right? And so sometimes you see, hey, there's been 4 or 5 different people on the team in a very short period of time. Oftentimes this is the result of, you said you were going to do some things, but those things have not happened, right? So if you're going to pitch and say, here's what we're going to do and when we're going to do it by, hit it, right? I'm trying to understand, are you the type of person that can execute and reach the goals or reach the milestones that you've kind of positioned for us, right? I think that's, I'll pause there. I might think of more.
I won't add to this one because I'm not an investor. You should invest in all of us. Everybody here.
Yes, we should invest in everyone.
Yeah. Excellent answer. And in fact, when you see the pitches today, you will find a bunch of excited founders trying to solve very specific problems that they see in certain verticals or in producing agents that will help us all become better. Whether we become better or not, that's our choice, but they're at least trying to get us to that place. But I wonder if you could speak to, I worry a lot about security and data privacy these days because of these vast machines that seem to know everything about me. And I know they know a lot more than they are fessing up. They actually know everything about me. They know more about me than I know about myself. Can you speak to some of the data security and privacy issues and how companies could be addressing them?
I can start. So it is a huge problem, and I think you're right. Most people are not aware that Facebook has like 180 parameters describing your behavior, and people and those are that's the product that Facebook is selling. If you're an advertiser, just which of these 180 parameters do you want? And but it's not an AI-related question, really. I mean, it's there today, and it is a big issue. There's attempted to laws around this, and I'm not sure they're very effective, and I'm not sure how to solve it. But maybe AI will accelerate both the bad and the good behavior in this. So I don't view it as an AI problem, but maybe AI can help solve it somehow.
So I think that the answer, as much as possible, is in the architecture of where you put the data and what you put into a public model. At least that's, I suppose, the how to solve it in the future is not really what I worry about. I worry about right now is we hold legal data right now, and people are writing contracts on our software now. And so the way that we do it is that we keep it outside of the public models, within the part that is in our knowledge graph that's available for RAG, and then we're just very picky on how we do it. I don't know that we've solved it perfectly, but that's at least one approach. That's what we do.
I'm not really, we don't do much cybersecurity, and that's not my expertise, so I might skip that side of it and just talk about the privacy. Think back to, does anyone remember Google Glass? Okay. What is different between that and the Meta Ray-Bans right now? Why is Meta sold, I think they're in the millions of units, and Google Glass sold, I think, 11 or something? Could be. Could be. I lived in San Francisco when Google Glass came out. Alliance with Ray-Ban could be. We called those people glass holes, because I never gave them permission to record me in a restaurant. This new generation, after the millennials, put literally everything for public consumption. They would rather wear Ray-Ban Metas than not wear them, because what if you missed a moment? And so I do think we're going through a transformation as a society around what actually is privacy. And it is a risk, but I'm actually going to frame it as a positive. I think on cybersecurity and privacy, these are both huge opportunities. We're investing in I can't say too much about it, a company right now that if we were still in the glass hole privacy concern phase, this company probably would not have a chance of being successful because it is relying on people being okay with having conversations recorded. But now we have Gong, right? We have Zoom notes. We have all of these things that record us all the time, and people are just okay with it. So I do think there's a bunch of privacy concerns, especially outside of the US, where these technologies have been shown to be used in much more nefarious ways. But I do think we're just making this shift where, from a personal privacy standpoint, that's changing, and that's actually opening new business models and new products.
Thank you. I think this may be a good time to open to the audience and ask for questions. So if you have questions for the panelists, please do step up. We can probably hear you.
We answered them all, huh?
If we could have the audience come over here, don't get mic stand set up for you. Just ask the question right there, please, so they can hear you online. You won't be on camera, I promise you.
David.
What you said about data and collecting that data and making sure that having data be like the potential, we focus more on giving that data not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of our customers. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that and how that will shape AI going forward to like everyday users, and what that relationship between having these business owners or us having access to that data and how that will shape just humanity in general and going forward and how business is done and how we operate. Hopefully that made sense.
Let me say it back to you. You might have to answer some here. So you guys are aggregating data that maybe wasn't aggregated before and providing it to businesses to be able to use? Is that the idea?
That's correct.
Okay.
What I can give a little bit more clarity. So what we do is we essentially streamline phone communication for businesses, small businesses, and we're able to give access to them to that data as intellectual property for them to be able to identify the kind of people that's actually calling, what they want, what they need, and who that persona is, so they're able to grow their business using that. And we can use it for ourselves, but we think the potential actually is giving it to them and them having to optimize how they work and how things are done.
I have a little bit different perspective here, but I'll be direct to kind of help you out. I think aggregating and analyzing that data is completely commoditized.
Okay.
I've seen 5 companies in the past 6 months just in Seattle, only with a connection to UW. So think of how many are out there in the world who are doing exactly what you're talking about, but for pharmaceutical companies. Mm-hmm. Previously, it cost $500,000 in 6 months to do. Mm-hmm. I saw a grad school student build it in a quarter project. If you cannot then use those insights and that analytics to take an action on behalf of that human, you're going to face way too many competitors, in my opinion, to be sustainable.
Okay.
In fact, we now see tools where we can tell it whatever aggregation we want it to go build in natural language, mm-hmm. and it goes and builds it for us. So that's one of the things we focus on in our investing is you got to be excellent at the aggregation. You have to be excellent at the analytics and insights, but that's like table stakes, and that gives you the permission and the right to go build a workflow that actually takes away actions from the human and just gets done the work that they need to get done.
That's exactly what we do. But yeah, that's great.
Maybe we should take another question.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sure. I think Charles has a question.
I want to riff on what Aloke said. Who owns the data? I mean, let's face it. What is AI powered by? Any answers? Anybody? Data. That's right. And data ownership is everything. Who owns the likeness of Scarlett Johansson? I mean, there's so many legal issues here. I want to see you guys fight amongst each other and come up with the truth. Who owns that data when it comes up with people?
Well, let's start with a lawyer.
Well, I'll start with the easy answer, and then we can go a little more complicated. The people who used the service in which they presented the data agreed to terms and conditions, likely in which they transferred the ownership of what they did on that platform to the owner. You didn't read the terms and conditions? Well, that's what they said. So there is that. Now, the question is aggregated data. Who owns that data? Which I think Ken had an answer to that, which is that if you can't use that, what do you have? And so your terms and conditions likely included that as well. Now, that doesn't get to the moral issue, which I will give to Magnus to answer.
So next question, please. No, I agree it's a difficult problem, and politicians, like, I don't know if you've seen the Senate in California that Gavin Newsom refused to sign. I mean, there's just a lot of issues. Next question.
So I think there's a couple things at play here. The value created and the speed at which it's been created is too fast to like pull the cat back into the bag, right? That's the first thing. So what we're going to need is, as a society and as governments, and I hope it happens at some type of national level, because it would be a nightmare for companies if this happens at a state level. Like I think it's right that California did not sign it because it just would have made all of your lives way harder, right, to go state by state. But I think what we're going to get is a really nuanced differentiation where industry by industry, use case by use case, we're going to have different rules created. We were able to get away with very broad-based rules with the internet for the last 35 plus years. That's not going to work anymore, right? With these generative models and how much further they can go than just, hey, you put your thoughts online and so anyone can use your thoughts. That is way different than creating a movie with Scarlett Johansson premiering in it who never participated in it, right? So I think, yeah, we're going to be at a place where they're going to look at very specific different use cases, and we're going to have a massive corpus of new laws and regulations that are very nuanced.
So I don't think it's a national problem. I think it's an international problem. And I think adding laws that's completely useless and just stop progress is not the right way. I don't know what the right way is, but I think start having a conversation. And it's an international problem in the sense that there's a lot of bad actors out there coming from all types of different geographies, right? It's the thing we do have to include those bad actors, right? And we read it in the news every day. And this goes from disinformation, this goes from hacking, this goes a lot of issues. And as I said, it's a very difficult problem. I don't have the right answer, but I know that AI, as I said, AI is going to accelerate the bad behavior, but I hope also AI can accelerate the good behavior around this.
I'll add one more thing to that. So privacy and regulation really are a slider, and we have to decide where we want to set that slider. So the EU tried to solve this problem by passing a very wide-ranging act, and what really that means is that a lot of AI companies have decided it's too expensive, really, to go to the EU, and so we need to see that as well. That how much innovation are we willing to give up for protecting our own privacy? That's the real question.
Well, thank you for asking the tough question. Yeah. I've been around long enough to remember Scott McNealy. People asked him about privacy. This was the CEO of Sun Microsystems. And this was like 2 or 3 decades ago. And his response was very telling. He said, you already have zero privacy, get over it. It was amusing at the time. Today, I find it very scary because of the direction in which the needle has gone. But we don't have the answers to this. We worry about it. All of the panelists expressed their own concern about it. I think this would be a place where I would advocate for all of you. The data, your data belongs to you. Be mindful of it. There are organizations like transparencycoalition.ai, which is working on lobbying. They are right here in Seattle. Learn more about it. With that, do we have more questions, or do we need to?
I have one more if we have time.
We are done.
We're
So
done.
thank you,
Never
everyone.
mind.
Round of applause to our panelists, please.
Thank you, everybody.
And I'll pass the baton here to my co-chair, Ron, to carry it on from here.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That was awesome. Ken, great to see you here.
Thank you.